What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, this video might not be for all viewers. Some people are gonna feel a type of way, but it doesn't matter because some of you guys just don't want true reporting. You want to hear certain things and certain things only, but that's not what you're gonna get from my channel. I call it like I see. I'm fair. First and foremost, I'm a boxing fan. There's a lot of quote-unquote boxing fans that are very tribal. They're tribalists, meaning no matter what a fighter they like does, they're gonna ride with it. Or even it even stretches to the point where if you like a certain fighter, let's say you love Pacquiao, then anything that leans towards the Pacquiao side, anyone who's affiliated directly with Pacquiao, you're with it, like Top Rank or whoever the situation is. Or if you like Mayweather, then anything Heyman does, then you're gonna be okay with it. Me, I call it like I see. Now I want to talk about HBO and their recent budget cuts. And this is not gonna be an eye-opener or a surprise to some of you, but for others it might be. Now HBO boxing has certainly tasted a budget cut. My opinion, I think this is in part a result of Premier Boxing Champs and what Al Heyman is doing, and I'm going to explain why and give you guys some examples. Now, Premier Boxing Champs, it made its debut late January 2015. A lot of people said it was destined to fail. It's not going to work out. No one cares. And how is boxing going to be without ring card girls? And I hate these ring entrances. Oh, I don't want to deal with commercials. Things of that nature. And the situation is, it's actually evolving. It's getting better. They fixed the ring entrances, made it more traditional. No one's really even cares about the ring girls, to my knowledge, from what I've seen, if you're getting good quality fights. And the thing where Heyman is hitting him over the head is he has some quality fights, but he also has a high quantity of fights. Meaning you're going to get some Leo Santa Cruz versus Kiko Martinez, Keith Thurman versus Luis Collazo. And some of those fights might even turn out to be, like both of those fights I just named, were pretty entertaining, even though on paper they weren't the fights that fans were requesting. But this is the thing. There's no promoter out there who every single match they make is a stellar match and the best of the best, and the best fighting the best and everything. You look at Vasyl Lomachenko's last few opponents. He was on the Pacquiao undercard. He was on the Mayweather Pacquiao undercard. And I don't even know those guys. I don't even know who he was fighting. You know what I mean? Never heard of him up until that point when he fought them. I've heard of Salido. I've heard of Gary Russell Jr. But since then, I haven't heard of a lot of Lomachenko's opponents. Now back to HBO. They're going through budget cuts. It's no mystery in the industry. And I want to show you guys some evidence of that and show you how the PBC structure, in my opinion, is hurting HBO boxing. Now, one direct telltale sign for me is the amount of HBO pay-per-views in relation to regular HBO fights. Showtime, I did a video about it. Make sure you check that video out. They dropped a bomb and they announced this spring-summer lineup full of fights. Leo Santa Cruz versus Carl Frampton. Keith Thurman versus Porter rescheduled. Gary Russell Jr. is on there. Deontay Wilder versus Alexander Povetkin in Russia. You have Charles Martin and Anthony Joshua. IBF title fight, which is going to be aired by Showtime. John Molina Jr., Ruslan Provodnikov, right? All these great fights for the spring-summer lineup. I haven't really heard HBO drop anything. Now, I was looking forward to the Barrera versus Ward fight. That is said and done. I covered that fight. And now on the books, you look at it, HBO doesn't have that many announced fights. Fights that are done deals where they have everything sold up, the venues and that. And the fights that they do have are HBO pay-per-view, right? A lot of them, most of the big fights are HBO pay-per-view. Manny Pacquiao versus Tim Bradley Part 3, and that's not even a fight that a lot of people requested. And I'm going to get to that fight because I want to point something out I'm sure you guys aren't aware of. Canelo versus Amir Khan, HBO pay-per-view, right? A ton of the HBO fights. They said Terrence Crawford, his next fight, they're trying to make a fight with Victor Postal, HBO pay-per-view. Miguel Cotto is supposed to fight James Kirkland, HBO pay-per-view. And the reason I think they're doing it is because they have budget cuts. And the way pay-per-view works, there's a lot of different things because you're actually charging something. So as long as you do a decent number, you can at least break even, at the very least break even, because you're charging people per fight, right? Even if you look at the Gennady Golovkin, hey, no, guys, Max, you look at Gennady Golovkin versus David Lemieux, they said for this event to be a success, it just has to hit 200,000. And that's not even that many, right? So they're not trying to do these astronomical Mayweather numbers where they hit 1.5 and set records. They just have to hit, 200, 250,000 plus buys. And then they've pretty much at least made their money back, and probably a little bit more because they're selling merchandise, live gate, things like that. But unfortunately, Triple G versus Lemieux, it flopped, and they don't have an actual number, but they're saying it's 97,000 to 150,000. Either way, that's a flop because they said this: if we do 200,000 or better, then we're in the clear. We're not in the red, and they didn't even do that. So that's one fight. So it shows you Triple G wasn't ready. Now, Triple G does have an upcoming fight on regular HBO versus Dominic Wade. Again, this is a guy, Dominic Wade, it's a mandatory, so you can justify the fight like that. But needless to say, not many people are familiar with Dominic Wade. We haven't seen him on the big stage, so no one really knows how he'll fare against them. And then all the other fights are HBO pay-per-view. Whereas you have Al Heyman putting on cards like Porter versus Thurman with Abner Mares and Jesus Cuellar, a featherweight title fight on CBS, free TV. Ruslan Provodnikov versus John Molina Jr. on Showtime. You got these other fights. So they have some subscription based that are going to be on Showtime, but they also have fights that are going to be on regular PBC. Danny Garcia just recently fought Robert Guerrero on regular PBC. And I think this is definitely hurting HBO because they've cut their budgets. And here's another example that some of you guys, I told you I would bring up Pacquiao Bradley 3. I have a question for you guys. Name the last Manny Pacquiao fight that you have seen that did not have 1, a face-off, and 2, a 24/7. I don't know if you guys realize that. The fight is April 9th, and HBO has not produced, at least to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, they have not produced an HBO face-off with Timothy Bradley or a 24/7. Even the Canelo versus Kirkland had 1 episode of HBO's 24/7. Now, this is a business. It takes money to make money. And I believe that HBO realizes this is a lackluster fight. Not saying it can't be good action-wise, but this is not the type of fight. This is a fight we've seen twice before. And there's controversy in the first fight on who really won and who should have won. The second fight, Pacquiao won. And I think most people, Bradley did good at first, and then he kind of tanked and gassed out or whatever. And Pacquiao clearly won that fight. And there's not much hype around this. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. So I think HBO being an entity, having the budget cuts, and being smart enough to realize this is not the type of fight that we want to take the extra energy and money to promote by spending money to get a camera crew out to the desert where Bradley's training, to go to the Philippines and go to the Wild Card Gym. We're not doing that. It's just going to be whatever it's going to be. And they're going to hope that they do whatever numbers on HBO pay-per-view, which is, it's a bad look because this is a fight not many people are talking about. And like I said, it takes money to make money, and you're not dishing out any money. There's no face-off. There's no 24/7, and you're just going to hope it sells. Now, you got to ask yourself, if Manny Pacquiao was fighting Amir Khan, who was a potential candidate, Adrian Broner, who they said was a potential candidate, Terrence Crawford, who was a potential candidate in the Pacquiao sweepstakes, do you honestly believe that HBO would not produce a face-off and or a 24/7 series for any of those fights, Broner, Crawford, or Amir Khan? I highly doubt it. But again, this is a business and they're dealing with budget cuts. So with those budget cuts, they're not trying to expend extra money on a fight that they probably don't believe in. So that's a sign right there. They don't believe in this fight because they're not willing to, like I said, Canelo Kirkland got the 24/7 treatment, right? Cotto Canelo got a face-off and a 24/7. But for the first time that I can recall, there's a Pacquiao fight on HBO pay-per-view, and there is no HBO Face-Off, and there's no HBO 24/7. I've seen HBO Face-Off where both fighters, neither one of them really spoke English. You know what I mean? Chavez Jr. versus Sergio Martinez, and they still made a face-off with Max Kellerman. But you got two guys who are English speaking in Pacquiao and also Timothy Bradley, and they're not doing it. So that's a telltale sign to me. Another reason why I think the PBC branch and chain has hurt HBO is for the simple fact of, with the budget cuts, there's mega fights in the making that they're trying to work on to secure, and they're not even willing to put up that much money for them. Now, what I mean by mega fights, I'm not saying it's going to do what Mayweather versus Canelo the one did. I'm not saying that, but mega fights in the boxing world, in boxing circles. Example would be Terrence Crawford, Victor Postal. Example would be, an even better example would be Vasyl Lomachenko versus Nicholas Walters. And I could speak on this directly because we did a round table with Sergey Kovalev. Dante's Boxing Nation was there, Fight Hype, everybody was there, right? And we did it. And Kovalev has the same manager as Vasyl Lomachenko. And there was an interview, and I was right there to witness it and to hear it. I was eating though, so I didn't film because I kind of came to that portion of it late. But I still overheard what was being said. And I'm going to play a clip courtesy of Dante's Boxing Nation. And this is from Igis Clemens, who is Vasyl Lomachenko's manager. And in that clip, he says that Vasyl Lomachenko, he's not going to disclose how much he was offered for the fight, right? But he's saying what he heard, Nicholas Walters was estimated, or he was offered $500,000, and then an additional $300,000 that they could put in the contract out of Lomachenko's purse if he were to win. And let me just shut that down real quick, because I'm reading a lot of comments. Oh, Walters is ducking, man. He doesn't want to take the $300,000 side deal and all that. No, that's not how boxing works. This is prize fighting. I want my money up top. As I said earlier, Pacquiao versus Bradley, the first fight. What happened in that first fight? Controversy. The person that won, Timothy Bradley, a lot of people thought he shouldn't have won. Even better example, look at Nicholas Walters' last fight. He fought Jason Sosa, I believe. And I thought it was a runaway victory for Nicholas Walters. Sosa was game, he was tough, but he clearly lost. Even Max Kellerman said that. And I think Roy Jones might have been the other commentator. And Nicholas Walters scored a draw, allegedly, according to the judges. So there's no reason for somebody to not get guaranteed money. Like when Floyd Mayweather fights, he fights Robert Guerrero, he's getting $32 million guaranteed. That's the safe bet, because win, lose, or draw, if he gets knocked out, if it's a draw. And we've seen controversial things like when Floyd beat Canelo's ass and they scored it a draw. CJ Ross did. There was no way you could have scored that fight a draw for Canelo. He didn't even do anything. You know what I mean? Beyond the third round, he just got blasted out. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I don't think that's ducking because someone doesn't want to take a side deal of an extra $300,000 if and when I win. And that's not an indication of a lack of confidence. That's just, boxing is screwy. Like I said, look at no further than Nicholas Walters' last fight. His very last fight, they said he got a draw and he clearly won. So Lomachenko is clearly probably the guy that HBO pushes more than Nicholas Walters in terms of the feedback and always saying good things. So to me, that stipulates that's a guy they kind of want to win, right? And I don't deal with that whole side bet if you win, because anything could happen in boxing. We see Mauricio Herrera, Hank Lundy, and he got a nasty, gruesome cut over his eye, and they had to go to the scorecard. So what if something like that were to happen? Nicholas Walters headbutt Vasyl Lomachenko, and the cut opened up, and only 3-4 rounds elapsed, and Lomachenko was ahead at that point. You know what I mean? Anything could happen. So I don't put too much faith into a little side bet. So that's that. Aside from that, Lomachenko's manager said Walters was offered $500,000.
How much money was offered to him? Can you share how much?
$300,000.
$300,000 to Nicholas?
That's what he would give out.
No.
Like to fight.
No, how much was offered to him for the actual fight?
I heard $500,000.
500. And how much would Loma get again?
You can ask somebody else.
You know.
But they would give him 300 more on top of the 500 if he was to win.
Yeah, Lomachenko was willing to take 300 from his purse and to give it to Walters.
So you don't want to share with us what Loma was going to get
Well, that's a promotional contract. Why should I? You can ask promoters and you can ask commissions. If you're going to give it, I don't have a problem, but it's not going to come from me.
So again, after watching the clip, that's from Lomachenko's manager. He says they offered Walters $500,000 and he didn't want to take that. And he did not disclose how much Lomachenko was making. From what I heard, they offered the total fight $1 million. And that's for a mega fight. That's for a fight that most boxing fans, most people watching this video that follow me, that are true to boxing, would love to see. Lomachenko stepping up in weight, definitely stepping up a class again since the Gary Russell fight. That'll be, most people will perceive to be his best name since Salido and Gary Russell Jr. And stepping up in weight to fight Nicholas Walters. And you can only offer that fight $1 million between HBO and Top Rank. Now, let's take a look at the PBC side. Danny Garcia, his very last fight with Robert Guerrero, Danny Garcia got $1.5 million. And that's to fight Robert Guerrero. Robert Guerrero, who was coming off of Aaron Martinez shaky performance. Some people thought he lost that. And then before that, he got knocked down and pretty much lost most rounds to Keith one-time Thurman. Robert Guerrero, for that fight with Danny Garcia, got $1.2 million. So both fighters, for a fight that was on free TV, both made over $1 million. Deontay Wilder, very last fight versus Artur Szpilka, he got $1.5 million to fight at the Barclays Center, and it was a tough fight for him. He got the victory and the KO win and put Szpilka in the stretcher. He got $1.5 million, just his purse. I'm just talking about each individual person's purse, right? That's not Szpilka's purse. That's Wilder only. He got $1.5 million. Same as Danny Garcia. Adrian Broner, his very last performance, it was a title shot against Khabib Alekverdiev. Broner got $1 million for that. Khabib Alekverdiev definitely is not a big name. I've seen him because I've seen the Jesse Vargas fight. But other than that, he hasn't been in high-profile boxing matches. Broner still got $1 million from that. Andre Berto, his very last fight, he fought Floyd Mayweather and got a career-high payday of $4 million. I'm not even going to talk about what Floyd got because he's in a league of his own in terms of his paydays. But Andre the Beast Berto got $4 million with Showtime, PBC, to make the Mayweather fight. So my point being is this. If HBO wasn't experiencing budget cuts, how come they're not able to offer Nicholas Walters something a little bit more? Vasyl Lomachenko something a little bit more. They're arguing and going back and forth over $1 million. And Danny Garcia by himself made that. Robert Guerrero got that by himself. He got $1.2 million in his last fight. And he was coming off a rocky performance where he got knocked down and it looked like he was out on his feet versus Aaron Martinez, and he lost his fight before that, right? But PBC is a cancer to boxing. I can't understand it. And I need you guys to help me understand that. So HBO boxing, they got to, like 50 said, you got to do something, baby. Something special. You got to do something, baby. What are you going to do? Like, you can't put up more than $1 million for Nicholas Walters versus Vasyl Lomachenko, a quality fight. All these fights on HBO pay-per-view. And see, and that's becoming harder and harder, especially with the age of streaming. There's good fights. I'm sure a lot of people will tune in to Canelo versus Amir Khan. Unusual matchup, two big names. So I'm sure people will tune into that. But who's trying to pay for Cotto versus James Kirkland? Two fighters off of losses, one off of a knockout loss on pay-per-view? Really? Right? That just doesn't make sense to me. Terrence Crawford versus Victor Postol. I have no problem with the fight whatsoever. Best fight that could be made, or one of them. One of the best fights at 140 that can be made. But it's not like Crawford versus Broner where you're mingling two different, the Cold War and two different promoters. And that fight would sell like crazy. But I don't think Victor Postol has the type of name, even though he's coming off a brilliant performance versus Lucas Matisse. I don't believe he has the type of name that will carry that as a HBO pay-per-view. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, fine, so be it. I wish them both the best because I like both of the fighters. but it's looking a little bit shaky. Looking shaky, baby, for HBO boxing, and that's simply because the budget cuts. They're cutting the budget, and the boxing fans are suffering because these are good quality fights. They have good quality fights that can be made, but the money has to come from somewhere. We're not getting face-offs for fights that need face-offs. To me, Pacquiao, Bradley, I've told you, I like both fighters. They're both good. They're both some of the deepest names in resumes at welterweight, but that's a hard sell. I told you guys that from the jump. I'm consistent. That's a very hard sell because we already know what happened twice in fights with them. Now, the only X factor is Teddy Atlas. Will he make a difference? And where's Pacquiao after the saltwater and shoulder stuff? But I don't know if that's enough to make it, to launch it into good pay-per-view sales. And they're trying to bombard us with all these HBO pay-per-views, and then you got another rival promoter who's putting things like Porter Thurman on free TV. Makes it real tough for HBO boxing. Again, I still haven't heard a response of a lineup of fights other than Triple G versus Wade, which is, it's okay, you know what I mean? But again, a lot of people aren't familiar with Wade. So name a HBO fight on regular HBO, which is subscription based, but name a fight that's already official, set in stone with HBO, and they have a date, a venue that is the quality of Sean Porter versus Keith Thurman, which is on free TV. I'm not even talking about the card, because the card, when you put Abner Matas and Cuellar on there, that makes that card even better. But even the main event, name a main event regular HBO fight that is looking like Porter Thurman in terms of a 50-50 fight that the fans can really anticipate. And we'll see what HBO does, how they respond, but I think they need to, I'm not saying put themselves in debt, but they need to try to find some way to make some money to make some of these good fights, because they're losing the battle at this point. And when Showtime was losing the battle, I made videos about that. Simple Google search will reveal that. Check the channel. I keep it fair, I keep it consistent, but HBO boxing, you gotta do something, baby. Period. Kovalev versus Ward, good fight, but they both stated that they're gonna have tune-up fights in between. So we gotta see what happens in those. I don't even know who those opponents are for each person. So that's a good mega fight in the making. Definitely HBO pay-per-view worthy when they get to it, but it's still not official. Let me know what you think HBO boxing should do next. Drop it in the comment section. Budget cuts definitely hurting their program. And you know what I mean? To me, I'm just being honest. If you're experiencing budget cuts, cancel the fight game. You know what I mean? Whatever money you would do, I'd rather them cancel, as a real boxing fan, I'd rather them cancel Jim Lampley's show of the fight game that I don't watch. I know a lot of people that don't really watch or care for the show. So the production, it looks like they have a nice set. You got hiring new hosts, Michelle Beadle and some other chick, and you're getting all these celebrities to do interviews via satellite and stuff. Cancel the fight game and get us some face-offs. I'm pretty sure I specialize in directing and video production and editing, right? So I'm pretty sure the production value for the fight game, which is kind of like a Jimmy Fallon type of setup with a host and stuff like that, is probably more expensive or just equivalent to producing a HBO face-off. And we can't even get a Pacquiao Bradley 3 face-off for a fight that you need to build up. You need to tell me why I need to pay for Pacquiao versus Bradley 3 when I feel that I've seen the outcome of that fight twice and Pacquiao won twice. You need to sell that to me. Give me an HBO 24/7 to let me know why I'm paying $60 to see something I've already seen twice. This is not like a movie like Fast and the Furious 7 where it's going to be something totally different and, you know what I mean, different special effects and stunts and more characters added. This is the same two people. So explain to me, if you have problems with the budget, my solution, because I don't just come up with problems, I come up with solutions. Cancel the fight game, because I don't even watch it, and I know a lot of other boxing fans don't. So save the money and put that in your little escrow account or whatever you got to do, the money that it would cost to do the fight game. Cancel that and get us some face-offs. Build up Cotto versus James Kirkland. Explain to me why two fighters coming off a loss, one being a knockout to Canelo. Canelo beat both of them in their last fights, to be honest. So Canelo Khan, okay, Khan's on a win streak. Canelo won his last fight, his last two fights, I believe, or last few fights, even though one of them was controversial with Laura. That's cool. Canelo Khan, I'll give that a pass. But explain to me how Canelo beats both Miguel Cotto convincingly and he stretches James Kirkland, and that's on HBO pay-per-view. Tell me why I need to watch that. So get the budget together. I'm out. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you hit the share button, the like button, the subscribe button. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.